This story begins as our protagonist is summoned to a new world by a goddess named Norn. Norn apologizes to our hero
はい。
あなた他の人たちの紹介に巻き込まれちゃったみたいなの。
and explains that he was summoned by accident. She says that the Otherworlder's summoning spell randomly selects a group of chosen ones from a list. Our hero was excluded from this list, but somehow was still picked by the spell. The spell is dangerous enough to destroy the entire world, which is why it's forbidden. However, the nation activated it under reckless conditions. Norn was infuriated when she heard about the activation.
剣で使いやがって。
女神が腐っていった。
So she acted quickly to stop it. Unfortunately, she failed to halt the spell, which is why she brought our hero to this place temporarily. The real chosen ones made it all the way through to the Empire, but our hero realizes that he was just a mistake, and he just wants to go home. Unfortunately for him, that won't be possible. Norn reveals that she was so upset that she completely patched the forbidden spell so it could never be used again. Not only is our hero stuck in this new world, but Norn also reveals that he no longer has a body to return to.
なっちゃったし。
体ないの？なんで？
対象外だからいろいろとばっちり受けたみたいなの。
All he can do now is restart his new life in this new world. The problem is that he can't go to the Empire with the others because he isn't a real chosen one, and he would be treated poorly. Norn assures him that she will send them to a great nation instead, one that is similar to the ones found in fairy tales. Our hero Takumi is hesitant, but Norn promises to give him her blessing. Our protagonist learns that he will now be 17 years old instead of 4D like he was in his past life. Instead of being a salaryman, he now will be able to obtain one of several combat or production jobs. Takumi would like to live a piece of life away from monsters, so he plans to choose a production job. Norn gently gives our boy some things to help him on his journey and sends him on his way. After crashing down to his new world, our hero discovers that he's no longer a hideous loser. He checks his stats to see that he really does have the goddess's blessing, but decides to keep it a secret to avoid any problems. Our boy then goes through testing some of his abilities and is delighted to find that he really is in a fantasy world.
ノックボール。
After flexing his powers, Takumi finds a tree branch. He uses his handy blacksmithing skill to turn it into a spear and acquires the woodworking skill for doing so. Takumi then uses his appraisal skill to see that there's a treasure trove of herbs nearby. After picking too many of them, he realizes that he doesn't have enough room in his bag. Luckily, he remembers that Norn gave him a special item box. He made it specially for him, and it provides infinite storage. Just some little run begs Takumi for help, and Takumi prepares for battle. Our valiant warrior fears that Bugs Bunny might be carnivorous, but he must act quickly. The rabbit-filled bunny attacks them, but Takumi quickly puts a hole in the monster. He earns the swordsmanship skill, but it is a shock that a beginner like him could win his first battle. Takumi is now a warrior level 1, but he freaks out because he didn't want a combat job. The little Braddox explains that she's from a nearby village and happily agrees to take our hero there. She says that he should take the rabbit because they're delicious, so Takumi puts it in his storage. The kid is amazed by Takumi's skills, but he is shocked. She shouldn't have been able to see his item box because he said it was to be concealed. Meanwhile, at the Empire, 3 students from Takumi's old world try to figure out what just happened to them. A woman explains that they are heroes and they were summoned so they could use their powers to save this world. She introduces herself as the first empress of the Sidonia Empire, named Elizabeth. While the boys are entranced by her weird-looking face, the girl named Akane receives the goddess's blessing in secret. A message tells her to trust her instincts, and Akane can immediately tell that Elizabeth cannot be trusted. Back with our boy, he is thanked by Molly's parents for saving her. Takumi's given permission to stay in the village, and he's ecstatic to hear that there's a vein of ore nearby. This means that this place is heaven for craftsmen like Takumi and a blacksmith named Boban. Unfortunately, this village doesn't have an inn, but Takumi is shocked when Boban says that they can just build him a house. The villagers begin preparing for the build, and Takumi shocks everyone when he levels the ground with earth magic. Doing so also gives him the mana manipulation skill. Takumi loses a bunch of energy, but everyone is still amazed that he can use magic at all. The others then tell him not to worry because they can handle building the house from here. A while later, Takumi settles in his new home. He credits his woodworking, blacksmithing, and carpentry skills for allowing him to make some nice furniture. Takumi still doesn't like how the warrior job was selected for him, but he's relieved to change it into what he really wanted, the alchemist job. Takumi the alchemist then turns to a table with some iron ore, silver ore, and copper ore that he mined earlier. He also has magic iron ore, which is said to be imbued with mana. Takumi prepares to make them into ingots and remembers that it usually takes a huge furnace to accomplish. Luckily, this is a fantasy world, and Takumi can just use magic. He's delighted to finally be able to do some alchemy, and he gets to work. He explains that alchemy is comprised of 5 techniques: decomposition, extraction, pulverization, synthesis, and recomposition. It's a strenuous process, but Takumi is excited by all the things he can make now. Later that night, Molly visits her boy, but she is shocked to discover that he is almost gone. After getting scolded and recovering, Takumi just goes right back to doing alchemy without taking any breaks. The only time he would even slow down is when he was being checked up on by the girls. Takumi then uses the ingots he made to create utensils and other useful tools. After all the work, his alchemist level skyrocketed to level 32. Things didn't stop there, as Takumi used his magic to help Boban create the finest weapon he has ever created. This sent Takumi's blacksmith job all the way to level 40. He then asked Mary's father for some potions so he could teach himself how to make them. Mary's father agreed as long as Takumi promised to sell the potions to him after he learned how to make them. Takumi now mixes the herbs like a diabolical madman, but notices that the potion he makes is different from the sample he was given. He can sense mana emitting from it as well and wonders if it's because he used water magic instead of normal water. Moments later, we find Takumi eating some random plant, and things take a painful turn. Luckily, he has the heal spell to recover, and Takumi reveals that he ate the poisonous plant on purpose. It's the quickest way to gain resistance and raise light magic skill.
耐性をつけるのと手っ取り早く光属性魔法のスキルを上げるため
It's pretty tough on his body, but he finds relief in knowing that at least he cannot use purification magic. The relief is short-lived, however, as a giant pig monster appears. The Takumi dagger and spear are useless against a powerful beast. And it sends him flying. Takumi is in a really bad spot as the monster prepares for another attack, so he uses several spells to defend himself. Unfortunately, they do nothing, and Takumi desperately tries to think of a solution. Just then, he panics as he discovers that another monster is trying to attack him from behind. It turns out that the spider is injured, but that doesn't stop it from protecting Takumi. Unfortunately, Takumi is left to defend himself again after the little guy pays a price for distracting the monster. He freaks out as nothing has worked so far, but he remembers that he has one more thing to try. Takumi's last option is to try and use his alchemy. He uses Decompose on the beast. And luckily it works, making our boy victorious. Takumi limps over to the injured spider to thank it and close its wound. He prepares to leave, but is shocked when he earns the tame skill and the spider becomes his pet. Takumi asks if the spider wants to join him on his adventure, and the little guy happily agrees. Takumi names it Mabel and is stunned when it instantly evolves. When Takumi returns to the village, everyone is amazed to see that he defeated a giant boar. They are horrified when they see that Takumi is being attacked by a spider, but he explains that he actually tamed it. What's most impressive is that insect monsters aren't even supposed to be tameable. While everyone feasts on the boar, Mary's father tells Takumi that he should go to a big city to sell the leftover parts of the monster for lots of money. As the guys watch the celebration, they acknowledge that their little village has gotten much livelier since Takumi showed up. However, they are sure that Takumi's destined for great things, and he's not the kind of person to stay in a small village elsewhere. Norn is glad to see that Takumi is doing well with his adventure. Another goddess wonders what Norn is planning because she granted Takumi a special body and even gave him her blessing. That isn't all, as it's revealed that Norn also sent Takumi one entire year into the past before the Empire activated the summoning spell. Norn denies doing it for any particular reason, but she obviously sees something special in our hero. Later, Takumi scolds Maple for a strange reason. It turns out that while our hero was asleep, His new pet used its webs to trap Takumi. The little spider apologizes, but she points out that Takumi has been really busy, so she was getting lonely. Takumi acknowledges that it's his fault because he has been too focused on potion making and other work. He apologizes to Maple and promises to take the day off so he can play with her. Little Maple couldn't be happier, but Takumi's guest is terrifying. Takumi quickly assures her that Maple isn't trying to eat him alive or anything, but Martha takes a strange interest in Maple's spider silk. Moments later, Martha amazes her friends with the coat she made using the spider's silk. The ladies explain that the spider silk is a luxury item to Takumi, who is perplexed by the fuss. It's extremely hard to find because usually the nobles buy it all up. The girls are extremely happy, and they all think Maple. Martha asked the little silk producer to make some thread with more elasticity, but Takumi tries to explain that Maple doesn't understand anyone other than him. Martha then tries to speak to her like a child. Surprisingly, this works, and Takumi can't believe that they're actually communicating. Takumi reminds Maple that they were supposed to play together, but she has a newfound purpose in life, and she tells him that she's too busy to play. This works out for our boy because he has other things to do, and at least his pet is happy. Takumi thinks about how he has been in this village for a month already, but he wants to head to the city soon so he can study alchemy and become more skilled. The only problem is that he doesn't know how to tell everyone that he wants to leave because they have been so nice to him. At the forge, we see that Boban has made a set of armor for Takumi. Boban says that he will have to reinforce the boots for all that kicking Takumi likes to do, but Takumi reminds him that he isn't a fighter, he is a producer. This makes Boban laugh because there isn't a single producer alive that could just walk into a forest and defeat a giant boar like Takumi did. Just then, Bonga arrives, and Boban says that it will be lonely without Takumi. Takumi has no clue what they are talking about, but it turns out that the guys knew all along that Takumi would be moving on soon. In order for his production job to grow, he must go to the city where demand will be higher and there will be a more reliable supply of materials. As it so happens, a trader from Bolton City will be coming in the next week, and the guys have already arranged for Takumi to ride in his carriage. The guys completely understand how Takumi feels, so our hero thanks them for everything. Afterwards, Takumi goes to find Martha, who's carrying around some rabbit innards. Apparently, they are the most delicious part, but they need to be processed properly to remove any diseases and parasites. Unfortunately, they don't have the tools to do so, so the innards have to be thrown away. Luckily, our boy has some skills, and he explains that he can just use purification magic. Takumi quickly purifies the disgusting-looking innards and explains that it's now safe to eat Martha's stunt to see that he can use light magic, and she thanks him because the rabbit innards don't have to go to waste. However, she warns Takumi that it would be better if he never showed that magic he just used to anyone. It turns out that only a few people in the entire world can use light magic. It's so rare that those with enough skill can make their living off that alone. Thankfully, no one in this village will say anything, but it wouldn't be safe to show anyone outside of the village. After that, Takumi spent the next week pouring all of his power into the village's development. He has grown to care a great deal about the villagers, and he wants to make the village as safe as he can for them to live in. He also wants to make their lives more convenient, and he wants to repay them for all they've done for him. He accomplishes this by replacing the wooden village wall with the stone wall and by using his alchemy to make taps for all the kegs. At the end of the week, the trader is shocked to see how much the village has been upgraded. Takumi is introduced to the trader named Papik, and Papik explains that he owns a trading company in the city. Takumi's ready to say goodbye, but first he explains to Bonga that he finished some more potions. Papik is amazed to see this, and Takumi reveals that he had 100 of the same potion delivered to Bonga's house. Takumi wants to make sure that there's enough for the entire village, and he asked for them to be distributed to everyone in case anything happens. The trader is absolutely shocked by what he sees, and Takumi confirms that it's a healing potion he made himself. Patpek nearly loses his mind from disbelief and takes a very close look at the potion. Jesta and the other villagers arrive to say farewell, and Molly says goodbye to the sleeping Maple. Martha gives Takumi a sweet-looking coat and reveals that all the ladies made it for him. That is what they use Maple's threads for, and Takumi says that he will cherish it forever. Takumi gets emotional as he thanks everyone for being so nice to him, and he says goodbye. As they all wave goodbye, Takumi thinks about how this was the first place he lived in his new world, and he will always consider it his hometown. Takumi's new friends are moved by how much the villagers care about Takumi, and they introduce themselves. Rilel is the redhead, Bigar is the baldy, and Heath is the blonde guy. Together they are the C-rank adventuring party known as Lion Fong. They are serving as bodyguards for Papik, but they are because this area is pretty peaceful. They wouldn't mind it if some monsters appeared, but Takumi's thinking the exact opposite. The guys wonder why Takumi's holding so tightly to his bag, so Takumi reveals that his pet killer spider is inside. The guys are terrified, but Rello still wants to get a peek. He tries to call Maple out, but Takumi is shocked when Maple bashes the guy in the face. He blames Raylo for his behavior, and he wonders if the incident will make Maple fear humans. Luckily, this isn't the case, as she has grown to like Bigar. Bigar is a father after all, so it's no surprise. Papik calls on Takumi and wonders if he would be willing to sell some of his potions, and the carriage halts, and the guys wonder if a monster has appeared. Takumi is horrified when he sees a large group of goblins, but the guys tell him not to worry. Papik also tries to assure him that it's no big deal, but he is terrified. The guys then show their expertise as they make quick work of the goblins. Some of the goblins even try to attack the carriage. Barillo takes them out after taking the magic stones from the beasts. The rest of their trip was peaceful. 3 days later, they arrive at the city. Takumi went to the Adventurers Guild with Lion's Fong, who were going to report the success of their escort quest. Takumi also needed to register with the guild in order to stay in the city and to register Maple as a pet. Takumi was hoping to register with an alchemist guild, but the city doesn't have one. Han, the receptionist, explains, however, that it's still helpful to register at the Adventurers Guild so he can use his guild card as identification. As long as he takes just one simple quest every month, the card won't expire. In the end, Takumi decided to register with the Adventurers Guild, and he registered Maple as his pet. Later, Takumi explains to Papik that he has 100 potions. Papik offers him 10 silver for each healing and stamina potion, and 50 silver for each mana potion. That's a whole ton of money. Money for our boy, because it translates to about 7 million yen in his old world. Oddly, Papik even apologizes for offering so little and explains that he's only doing so because Takumi hasn't made a name for himself yet. This is all too good to be true, so Takumi wonders if the traitor has an ulterior motive. But Papik doesn't seem like the type to deceive others. Just then, Papik changes the subject to ask Takumi about his living situation. He knows that Takumi plans to set himself up as a producer, so Papik recommends that he find a home with a workshop. Takumi doesn't have enough saved up to buy a house, but Papik reveals that if he's willing to rent, then his company can recommend a place. Things are moving too fast for Takumi, but Papik has already called for someone to show him the house for rent. Takumi is done to see that the place is a mansion, and he is told that the rent is 1 gold and 50 silver a month. That's much lower than Takumi expected, so he wonders if the place is haunted. Takumi would be able to afford the rent with the money from selling his potions to Papik, and the place even has a shed for his workshop. Takumi tells Maple that this will be their new home, and he agrees to rent the giant place. As they walk through the city, Takumi can't help but wonder about the strange stench that he has smelled since arriving. He is told that it's coming from the source. The nobles use magical purifying devices to treat the sewage from their mansions, but the rest of the city doesn't. Magic purifying devices have to be excavated from dungeons or ancient ruins, so they are expensive. The city can't afford it, and Takumi can't believe that they don't purify the sewers at all. He is told that priests are hired to purify them periodically, but they just have to bear it for the most part. The next day, Takumi and Maple move into their new home. Our thoughtful hero already had plans to repair the city's outer walls, but they will have to wait as he has something more important to worry about. Something that could mean life or death. After mixing some clay with some quartz, Takumi uses magic to shape something he is working on. He then uses some fire magic to heat the thing and adjust the temperature. He then uses space-time magic to shorten the time it needs to bake. It's a difficult process, and Takumi must even stabilize his project using alchemy. All his efforts result in just what he wanted, and he levels up several skills along with his alchemist job. Afterwards, Takumi is all tired out, but it was all worth it. It turns out that his life and death project was actually to make a toilet just, and Takumi hears a terrifying scream, and he's shocked to find that Maple has captured an intruder. It turns out to be Papik, but Maple says that she was just entertaining him. Takumi says that only children would be entertained by this, but Papik surprisingly finds his capture very soothing. After being set free, Papik asks to use the restroom. Papik is stunned by what he finds, and Takumi has to explain what a toilet is. That isn't all, as the alchemist also attached the magical device to it. After finishing business, the toilet uses purification to break the waste down into clean water and a small amount of inorganic material. This makes Papik wonder if Takumi has an aptitude for light magic. But our boy remembers what Martha said. He has to keep it a secret, so he begs Papik not to tell anyone. Papik promises not to say anything, but he begs Takumi to make at least another 100 of the toilets. It would be a lot of work, but Takumi is sure that he can do it if he has the materials. Papik is certain that Takumi will need a helping hand, which is okay because our boy was planning to hire someone eventually. Papik had something else in mind as he recommended forming a contract with a slave. Considering Takumi's talents, Papik believes he should contract a slave bound to secrecy by magic. They could also serve as his protection and manage the mansion. Takumi is stunned and wonders why he would need to be protected. Papik explains that Takumi has announced aptitude for light magic, and that means he's considered to be chosen by God. At least that is what is said by the Church of Divine Light. The church scoops up anyone with aptitude for light magic and profits from exploiting their healing magic. Surely they would not just ignore the light magic used by Takumi's toilets. Takumi, of course, wonders if it's a good idea to make 100 of them. But Papik has an idea there is a way to get them made, and he knows how important it is that no one knows Takumi was behind it. Step 1 is making sure that Takumi gets himself a slave. However, Takumi is against using slaves. Papik can't really understand, but Takumi would rather do it all himself if those are his only options. It's quite a task, so Papik doesn't think it's possible. But they are interrupted when Takumi's guild card begins to glow. It's a message reminding Takumi that he must complete a quest to keep his registration. It is requested that he go to the Adventurers Guild before the deadline, and Takumi realizes that he really does need some extra hands. Papik knows the perfect place as he takes Takumi to the Mullen Company, the city's most trustworthy slave trader. Papik tells him to wait at the company's entrance while he prepares a meeting, but our boy ends up wandering into a garden. And there, he finds a girl that he can't help but stare at. This girl, Koli, tells him to go home, and Takumi is stunned. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting, and please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.
Take you